Hey guys. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to our Facebook Live tonight.
Yeah.
So today we asked you guys to post pictures of your dogs. How many did that? I posted a picture of our dog, Ladybird.
Okay, good. I'm glad you did because I didn't.
Yeah, okay, so I did. I was asking Ronnie, there has to be some stories about Ladybird. Like, there's some stories. I know, like, our dog is totally codependent.
Very, very codependent. Mm-hmm. She does not like to, she doesn't even like to be in a room that you're not in.
Right.
Yeah, wherever you're at in the house, she wants to be there.
So what you don't usually see on Sundays or these nights is that she's right by our feet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last Sunday, she started out the night at the feet of the worship team.
Yes.
She's laying down, sleeping.
But she's embarrassing when people come over also because we have tried to break this many, many times. She drinks out of our toilet.
Always. It doesn't matter. If it's open, she's in there drinking.
Yes, and we have kept the lid down. We make sure she has water.
Yeah.
So then everyone at our house is like, because she's dripping toilet water. It's the worst. So, well, if you guys are on, if tonight, say hello so we know that you are here tonight. We would love to say hi to you.
Yeah. Definitely.
Ronnie's here with me tonight, so I got the text side down.
Yeah, so if you see one of us jump up and have to leave, it's because Harper is in need. We have her locked up in the bedroom alone.
No, not alone. So much better with our 8-year-old.
Yeah, just kidding.
So.
Yeah, so guys, well, let's just jump right in. So May has been a month that we've been talking about mental health.
Yeah.
And each week we want to talk about something that had to do with our mental health. And, you know, usually people aren't into talking about their mental health.
No, it's a taboo.
Yeah, it's something we shy away from. It's something that we, you know, if we're dealing with mental health issues, a lot of times we want to hide them from other people.
Yeah.
But we're all walking through the emotional side of, you know, the shelter in place. And there's so many emotions that we have dealing with this, and they change from day to day.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about grief last week, and what we're walking through and what we're missing, and what you know, the things that are essentially dying in our social life, or all those things that we're
like
we're
we
losing.
Used our daughter's first birthday or graduations.
Exactly,
you know, we have 2 cousins, 8th grade and high school.
Yeah.
We have Donovan, that is part of real life. He's not able to have a graduation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And before that, we talked about stress and that all of that we're feeling with. But tonight, guys, we're going to talk about anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when you hear about anxiety from the pulpit or from just a Christian perspective, let's say, you always hear these 2 verses. And it's Philippians 4:6 and 1 Peter 5:7. And the first one is, don't be anxious for anything. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is, cast your cares on him because he cares for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
These 2 verses are incredible. Really, they are. They're incredible verses, and they hold so much truth. But I think that sometimes we read them, and if we're feeling anxious, if we have cares, we feel that we're not living the way that we should be living.
Right. So I honestly struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
I have dealt with it for a very long time, all of our married life. If I was to look back, I think probably I was dealing with it in high school, but I didn't know, like I didn't have the vocab to tell my parents about it. I didn't have even how to begin to tell with them. So it wasn't until I was actually hospitalized trying to balance a 40-hour work week, going to college full time, and living on my own that I kind of hit this wall with my anxiety. And, you know, you want an answer, like you want a specific thing, and having someone tell you, well, you're dealing with anxiety. This is what we need to treat. It's anxiety. It doesn't make sense to you because you feel these heart palpitations sometimes. You feel overwhelmed and you are exhausted. Yeah. And for someone just to label it anxiety is hard.
You feel the physical side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, and I remember these 2 verses, they were quoted to me a lot because if we're looking back into, so probably 2001 was when I went to a doctor for it and I got diagnosed with anxiety. Like a medical person said I had anxiety. Maybe 2000. So that much long ago, people really were like, these two verses is what they sent me to. These, don't be anxious, don't be anxious. And I felt like I was not adding up. I felt like there was something wrong with me because I was still anxious. These verses I had them memorized. I kept them on my refrigerator, but I was still anxious. And I would wonder, am I not close enough to God? Am I not worshiping enough? Am I not praying enough? Like, what is happening that I know these verses, they're saying do not be anxious for anything, and I'm still anxious.
Yeah.
Like, it's like God is saying in his Bible, don't be anxious for anything, but yet Shannon's anxious. She's anxious. And you might be like me, and you might have anxiety. Or like Ronnie said, right now, there's a lot that is going on with COVID-19 that causes anxiety. Like, nothing is the same. And one of the things that I think causes us to have anxiety is because we don't feel like we're living up to how we should be. We're not being productive. We're not getting things done. What is normal in our life right now? And that can cause a lot of anxiety. So either maybe you've dealt with anxiety like me, or maybe you're feeling anxiety from this.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't, deal with anxiety regularly, but right now you're feeling it. And you might have been giving this verses. So why are you still dealing with the anxiety? So Philippians 4:6, reading it, it says that, do not be anxious for anything. Do not be anxious. But, so if you look back though, so I broke that verse down and I looked at it. So who was Paul talking to? Why was it said? In which way was he saying it to them?
Yeah.
So Paul,
context is so important.
Right. It's like, just can't pick a verse and label it on something. Like, what was being said during this? And so Philippians 4:6, Paul was writing this letter to the Christians in Philippi.
Yeah.
He had planted the church there. He was a church planter, like boom, because he's church planter like us. But he had planted this church in Philippi, and then he was writing this letter because there were some things going on. Well, first they could have been anxious because Paul was on house arrest in Rome for spreading the gospel.
Yeah.
So because Paul, the person that founded their church, the person that they looked up to, the person that was their shepherd, was on house arrest for spreading the gospel. And then the second thing was that they were concerned for their well-being of him, but also there was division in the church.
Yeah.
There were people coming into the church and bringing discord and bringing division, and no one was on the same page. And then there was this false teaching that was going on. So you have Paul in prison, this divide, and this false teaching that's going on, and Paul's writing this letter to them. So that's chaos, and that would bring anxiety. So you're a new believer. This is your church. There's division in the church. There's false teachers. You don't know what to believe, and your pastor's in prison on home arrest. You know what I'm saying? So that's a lot. So what Paul is saying to them, hey, don't worry about this. Don't be anxious about this. This isn't something for you to carry on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about this division. Don't worry about this discord. Give it to God. Trust God with this need. Trust God. They were anxious, and Paul is addressing these issues, and he tells them, hey, instead of carrying this, instead of being anxious about this, let's give it to God. Because, honestly, God is the one that can deal with this.
Yeah.
God's the one that can handle it. Oh, and you guys, so earlier I said, I deal with anxiety. That's very real. You guys, you can ask Ronnie, like we joke about it now. But it was a very trying time in our marriage. But right after I had each of our children, my anxiety was off the hook.
Yeah.
It was really bad. And like we tease about it now, but it was where I could not hardly function. I remember bringing Emma home, and I did not want, I had my mom stay with us for 2 weeks because I was so anxious to be alone. And then I did not want all of us to be sleeping while Emma slept. So I put us on an around the clock staying awake, which Ronnie didn't do.
Yeah, I slept.
But I couldn't sleep not knowing that someone was watching her sleep. That was just how it was happening. And my anxiety was so bad. Not one thing was I anxious about did I ever think to pray for. Like, looking back, there's not one time I did not think to pray, God, help me have peace with what's going on with my daughter. Help me have peace right now. God, you know when she sleeps. And you guys, so if you have had a child recently, they give you all these crazy statistics and they show you everything that can happen to your child. They scare you to death and then they say, take your child home. So I seriously was so afraid of sudden infant death. And like they acted like, now I know because I'm at a different place. I'm healthy with my anxiety. I didn't know like things had to happen. Like I thought that Emma would just be laying and something would happen to her. Like I thought it would be like that and she would be gone. I thought it was like that for Josiah. But now I know I'm healthy and I know that that wasn't realistic, but my anxiety made things look so different to me. But I never once thought about praying about it. I never once thought, God, protect my child, because with my anxiety, I wanted control of it. I thought if I had control of it, then everything would be better. You guys, a lot of times if you deal with anxiety like I do, it is that you want to be in control of what's going on.
Yeah.
You want control of the relationship. You want control of the situation. You want control. Control is a false sense of security in a situation that you're walking through. I remember we would get in a car. So this was after I had the kids, when I was still dealing with all that, just everything that a woman deals with after they have a child. And mine was anxiety. And I would eyes would be wide open when Ronnie drove, because I felt like I could keep us, if I could control the way Ronnie drove, I could keep us from having an accident. It was rough.
Yes,
like we seriously, we laugh about it now, but it was seriously rough. And you guys, control goes right to, do I have enough to take care of this? Do I have enough to get through this? Yeah. When we want to control, we think we can control the good or the bad from happening. Yeah. I had to be at everything with anybody that was in my family, anybody that was around, because I thought if I was there, I could control the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is control, and with anxiety gives us a false sense of security.
Yeah.
So, we have this anxiety, and it can make us feel paranoid. It can make us feel fearful. It can make us feel uneasy. And we have this balance of this anxiety and then trying to trust God.
Right.
And it's really this scale on how are we going to walk this out. And someone that is anxious, you cannot think in your mind that trusting God could possibly bring you peace.
Right.
How am I, I don't know why, but with anxiety, if you have control or if you're worrying about something, it really gives you a false sense of security. And if I'm not worrying about it, if I'm not trying to control the situation, to say, God, I trust you with it, that is really hard. And a second verse, 1 Peter 5:7, it says, cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you. And anxiety is fear-based. When you're dealing with anxiety, you're thinking of the worst case scenario. I thought every time we were going to get in the car, we had a chance of going and getting in an accident. Every time we laid one of the kids down, they had a chance of dying in their sleep. Every time we went out into the mall, I remember one time, I don't know if you remember, but we were in the mall. You took me for Mother's Day to go shopping, and I had an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was going on. But it was just so overwhelming to me in that moment. You guys, anxiety has a way of harassing you.
Yeah, it does. And life is always going to have those external pressures and internal problems.
Yeah.
How do we help ourselves through this?
Right.
How do we not become a slave to our emotions? How do we keep God at the center of our life and not our anxiety at the center of our life? I think those are questions that we have to ask ourselves. And in this hand, you have trusting God. And in this hand, you have trying to do it in ourselves.
Right. Yeah, and that right there is what I would go back and forth with when I dealt with anxiety. Yeah. What you just said, those things, trust in God and trying to control things. Am I letting God be in control? Am I trusting God? Mm-hmm. Or am I trying to hold on to things so tight and be in control of them?
Yeah.
And that is really, for me, dealing with anxiety, letting go of that control and trusting God was really hard.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I don't know for you guys that have dealt with anxiety. So this is a journey that I have been on since 2001. I feel like I'm at a healthy place with it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like in the beginning of COVID-19, there were some things like it probably drives Ronnie nuts, but I know I'm really dealing with anxiety and I'm overwhelmed with my anxiety when like I can't even think where I put my keys. Like, I mean, one time, like, it was a very and like, it's when I have a lot on my plate, there's a lot of new stuff going around,
Yeah.
and I don't guess my footing is what I feel like. But I remember one time he was so beyond with me, but he's at work. I think I've locked my keys in the car. He drives all the way here and my keys aren't in the car. But my mind, because like I'm so like just overwhelmed with my anxiety, I can't even think where my keys are. And he is like beyond with me. But I didn't realize like that is something like that. Those are some, now we know that, okay, when my anxiety is bad, when I need to get control of it, I have no recollection of what I'm doing. Like, I feel like I'm just in auto mode. So if I set something down, I don't know where I'm going to put it. When I'm busy, I do the same thing. But, so am I letting God control or am I trusting Him? Am I trying to be in control, do things in my own strength, or am I trusting God?
Yeah.
And that is so hard. We tend to think that the opposite of anxiety is peace.
Yeah.
But you know what? Our peace, I was thinking about this. So when we were preparing for this, the peace that I used to desire with my anxiety, that I thought if I just had this peace, I would not be dealing with anxiety anymore. But that would be that it was positive. My life was positive. Everything was good. Another way that I thought I would, opposite of my anxiety, to have that peace is absent of all conflict.
Yeah.
Which isn't peace at all.
No.
And then that nothing but good feelings was going to come Shannon's way. You guys, that's not reality, and that's not biblical peace.
Well, that's not even real life.
But if life could be like that, it would be so much easier for me.
Rainbows, right?
Yes. But you guys, God's peace, biblical peace, is knowing God is in control. And you may think, if I don't have control of this and I let go and I seriously let go of the reins and give God control, how can that bring me peace? You guys, it is remarkable, but it does.
Yeah. It
truly does. When you say, God, I can do nothing about this, and you let go and you let God have control, not only I learned mechanisms to help me with my anxiety. I learned things that they taught me to help me with my anxiety, like counting or like finding things to concentrate on, or things when I felt like I didn't know if I was having an anxiety attack or a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like there were things that they taught me, but also it was a journey with God, and it was me learning to trust God.
Yeah.
To trust God, and no matter what the outcome was, I mean, worst case scenario, if it happened, God was still there.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, God was still there. That peace, that biblical peace, is honestly what will guard our hearts and mind. Anxiety, I said it earlier, it is harassing.
Yeah.
I feel like anxiety is something that harasses us. It just goes over and over with us. But God's peace, trusting God, is a guard for our minds and our heart with that. Yeah. It isn't dismissing it. It isn't saying this will never happen, or, I've been called before a Pollyanna or a positive Polly and things like that. I don't think that trusting God is that. That's just part of my makeup to be positive. I mean, you
come by it honestly.
I do. I come by it honestly if you've ever met Gary Leaf. But, so I'm not saying that is trusting God. It's just knowing that whatever your future holds, that God is there. It's not dismissing that something bad could happen. It's not dismissing that life isn't going to be perfect. It's giving God control of whatever you are walking through.
Yeah.
We have this burden. And we carry this burden, and it's saying to God, I give you this burden. So that verse, cast your care upon God. So that care, if you translate it in the original language, which I thought was really interesting, it means to have distracting anxiety. So when in 1 Peter, when it says cast your cares on God, what he's saying is cast your distracting anxiety on God. And that reminded me of Josiah to cast. So Josiah loves to fish. That is one thing that he is bummed out right now, because in the spring during Easter break, right before Easter, that's like the week his grandpa will take him fishing. And that was like his biggest disappointment. But when he first got his fishing pole, so like he had his little fishing pole.
Yeah.
I can't, like, it was a Paw Patrol one.
Yeah.
Well, then for Christmas he wanted
With the
one.
trigger release.
Yes, and he wanted it open reel. Like, he knew all these things, and he wanted it a certain high, so long. I don't remember, like 5 feet or something.
Yeah.
But when he got it, he would go to our front yard and he would practice his casting, because he wanted, when he went to the lake, when he went fishing with his grandpa, he just wanted his cast to be perfect. And I remember he had this little thing that he would do, and then he would let go, and it would go all the way into our neighbor's yard. But I was thinking, when you cast, that's really getting it away from you. So you're casting that distracting anxiety really far from you.
It's not just dropping it.
No, it's casting it,
Yeah.
You're letting go of it, and you're trusting God.
Yeah.
And one thing that Ronnie reminds me constantly of my anxiety, when my anxiety is getting overwhelming, when my anxiety is getting out of control, he will tell me, Shannon, you have got to take these thoughts captive. These thoughts you have got to take captive, and obedient to Christ is what you're thinking. He'll remind me, God is not out to hurt you or to harm you, because I will go to the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way, and I'll have to think, no, this isn't, God is for me, not against me. He's come to give me life, and life to the fullest. So when my anxiety wants to lie to me, when my anxiety wants me to think, you can never do this, this is going to be the worst thing, if you're not with this, then it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
I have to take that captive and say, no, this isn't right.
Yep.
This isn't right. You guys, you know what? God is so close to us, and he is interested. The things that cause me to be anxious, the things that cause anxiety in my life, God cares about.
Yep.
And he is interested in those things. So what you're walking through right now, if it's causing you anxiety, if it's causing you to be anxious, God cares about that. He's interested in that. He walks this life with you.
Yeah.
He is right there beside you, walking this situation out. I think that we can pray about it. Like, I'll go to Ronnie and I'll ask him, I'm really struggling. And I didn't do this at first. I tried to hide it. I didn't want anyone to know my thoughts, because I think the enemy kept me bound with that, because I felt so disgraceful. I felt so disgraced that I was feeling this way. And if I went to somebody and I shared my anxiety with them, they would think I was such an awful person.
Yeah.
On top of that, a pastor. But I've gotten to trust some people. I trust people, but that I feel comfortable sharing these things. And one of them is my husband, and he will pray with me. I can go to Ronnie and say, Ronnie, I'm really dealing with anxiety today. And he can pray with me, but I have to make a choice in my heart to trust God with that situation.
Yeah.
You guys, I love praying with people. I truly love praying with people, but there are some people that come to me and I pray for them, and I know they're walking away exactly the same as when I first started praying, because they are not trusting God with what they're holding on to. They want to keep a hold of that. I don't know if it's their identity. I don't know if it's just something that they want. Maybe they don't know how to let go of it, but you have to let go of it. So, and God and you are the only ones that know what is happening in your heart. The only ones. So tonight, Ronnie and I just want to ask you, are you dealing with anxiety? Are you walking through stuff that makes you anxious? Is it your family? Is it your job? Is it a relationship? Is it your future? Is it going on economically? Whatever it is there something that you've held on to, and you think, if I can keep control of this, then it's going to be okay. If I can keep control of it, then it's going to be okay. And if I worry enough, for some reason when we're anxious, we worry. Ronnie, my mom and Ronnie both will say, don't read the side effects on a medication, because I'll worry and I'll get him. And I swear to you, my brain will start swelling if that's a side effect. And I'll be like, I think you can see my brain in my ear. Can't you see it? It's coming out. Like any side effect. It could say that I'll grow a blue thumb. And I'd be like, oh, it's starting. So they're like, don't read it. But we worry. We dwell on that. We have to take that and trust God with those things. Giving God control and trusting God doesn't mean that you don't care.
Yeah.
It's not a lack of caring. It means that we know that our life is truly in the hands of God.
Right.
It means that we trust God with our family. It means that we trust God with our situation. It means that I could wake up tomorrow and life could be totally different than it is right now, but I know that God is still in control.
Yeah.
It means that I could wake up tomorrow and something could happen, but it means that I trust that God is still the Lord of my life.
Yep.
Not your situations, not what you're walking through, but God is still in control of your life.
Yeah.
It means that I trust God and I let go.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to continually do that. You have to remind yourself and do that again. Sometimes you let go and then you pick it back up and you have to let it go again. There's not too long ago, I would say it's fairly recent, but Shannon and I were out and we ran into somebody that just had a very negative perception of me, and I knew that this person could be very mean with their words, and like they had this super negative perception of me, and just with the whole situation, I knew that I just didn't want to be around that person. So I said, let's leave, let's go. And we were leaving and we were on the way home, and I had an anxiety attack, and I'd never had an anxiety attack before. Yeah. And it was the craziest thing. I was driving home and I'm having this anxiety attack, and it was just crazy overwhelming. And I think that a lot of it went back to, I used to care a lot about people's opinion of me. Mm-hmm. You know, what they thought of me is your how perception. I valued my worth. Yeah. And in that moment, all of those feelings of, you know, their opinion of me and everything, all of that just came rushing back. And at that moment, Shannon prayed with me, and we went, you know, I got through it, and I just had to give that back to God. You know, hey, I am who I am, God, because of who you say I am.
Right. Yes.
Not because of what anybody else thinks. And I give this, you know, I can't control what, you know, they might do or what they might say. This person might do, this person might say, but what I can do is I can give it back to you, God.
Right. Yes.
And, you know, I picked it up and I gave it back, and it you just have to do that sometimes.
Yes, you do. You have to trust God.
Yeah.
Your worth comes from Christ, not other people, not your situation. Your worth comes from Christ.
Yep.
So that was a really good example.
Yeah.
So, all right, you guys. Well, thank you for joining us. Hey, if you deal with anxiety or you're feeling more anxious right now, shoot us a note on here, message us. We would love to pray with you. We would love to talk to you and just walk this with you. You guys, we want to talk about these things because we know they're hard to go through.
Yeah.
And real life is our name, but it's because we want to do real life with you, and we believe John 10:10. Jesus came to give you life and life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with grief, if you're dealing with anxiety, if you're dealing with stress, that's not what God has. He wants you to be free of those things. So we're here for you. Next week, join us. We're going to be tackling anger.
Ooh,
yeah. All right, you guys, have a great night. We love you, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.